This is Atomic Biscuits, and I'm your host, BACFA. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Atomic Biscuits. This is episode 2025-04-20, Strawman. And happy Easter to you out there. With shadow hearings, Democrats counter-program the right and find an audience. This is by Max Tanney over at Semaphore.com, posted on April 13th. Stuck in the minority, Democrats may not be able to lead crusading congressional hearings to draw attention. Partisan issues Republicans would never take up. But working with ideologically aligned podcasters and news influencers, they're finding some online audiences for toothless hearings that look like the real thing. In recent months, Democrats have held what they're now calling shadow hearings, essentially press conferences taped at the Capitol and staged to look like committee hearings. Footage from an event on the Trump Justice Department's targeting of law firms organized last week by California Senator Adam Schiff and Maryland Representative Jamie Raskin garnered millions of YouTube hits across several channels, including from the anti-Trump online juggernaut MeidasTouch, as well as millions of views on social media from left-leaning news influencers like at Jolly Good Ginger and comedian D.L. Hughley. The shadow hearings do not make policy and are little more than publicity stunts, but they serve as an opportunity for Democrats to demonstrate to angry supporters that they're pushing back against Trump and for members to develop stronger digital media habits. Again, that's over at Semaphore.com. I gotta say, they're getting a lot of practice at creating and crafting news that doesn't really exist. We saw this during the show trial to put Trump behind bars, get the orange man, and we saw it on January 6th. So this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that what they have is Hollywood on their side and a bunch of cameras so that they can look like they're doing something, because they can't give up any wins or any space or agree at all with the things that most Americans want. So they continue to marginalize themselves in this way. And another place that was very evident this week was with Joe Biden's first wheeling out after his, I guess post-presidency is the way to describe his current condition. Biden alleges Trump has taken a hatchet to Social Security in his first post-presidency speech. This was over at APnews.com by Steve Peoples and Fatima Hussein. Chicago, former President Joe Biden warned on Tuesday that President Donald Trump has taken a hatchet to Social Security, weighing in on a critical issue for millions of Americans as the 82-year-old Democrat briefly returned to the national stage. Biden, who has largely avoided speaking publicly since leaving the White House in January, gave an evening speech at the National Conference of Advocates, Counselors, and Representatives for the Disabled in Chicago. The former president was speaking as Democrats across the nation offered similar warnings for what they described as a Social Security Day of Action. In fewer than 100 days, this new administration has done so much damage and so much destruction, it's kind of breathtaking, Biden charged during a speech that spanned just under a half hour. They've taken a hatchet to Social Security Administration. It was no coincidence that Tuesday's appearance, which marked Biden's first major event since leaving office, was focused on Social Security. Democrats have increasingly focused on Trump's turbulent leadership over the popular government agency that provides benefits to more than 70 million Americans. Both parties expect Social Security to emerge as a key issue in next year's midterm elections. Speaking before a crowd of roughly 200 people. Biden largely stuck to his prepared remarks, but also rambled at times as he told stories about growing up with working class people. He referred to the Republican president only as this guy. Trump, by contrast, continues to blame Biden for many of the nation's problems and often attacks his predecessor by name. Conservatives immediately seized upon a Biden reference to the country's political divisions as an attack on Trump supporters. We can't go on like this as a divided nation, as divided as we are, Biden said. As I said, I've been doing this a long time. It's never been this divided. Granted, it's roughly 30%, but it's a 30% that has no heart. Biden's spokesperson did not immediately respond to a request for clarification about whom Biden was referencing. Earlier in the day, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt took a shot at the former president's age and fitness when asked about Biden's appearance. I'm shocked that he is speaking at nighttime, Leavitt said during Tuesday's White House press briefing. I thought his bedtime was much earlier than his speech tonight. She said that Trump, who is 78 years old, would sign a presidential memorandum Tuesday afternoon aimed at stopping illegals and other ineligible people from obtaining Social Security benefits. The memorandum will expand the Social Security Administration's fraud prosecutor program to at least 50 United States attorney offices and establish Medicare and Medicaid fraud prosecution programs in 15 U.S. attorney offices, Leavitt said. The Social Security Administration pushed back against Biden's remarks using its official X account. Former President Joe Biden is lying to Americans, the agency wrote. The Republican president almost immediately began slashing the government workforce upon his return to the White House, including thousands of employees at the Social Security Administration, along with the planned layoff of 7,000 workers and contentious plans to impose tighter identity-proofing measures for recipients. The SSA has been sued over a decision to allow Trump advisor Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency to access individuals' Social Security numbers and other personally identifiable information. Musk, the world's richest man and one of Trump's most influential advisors, has called Social Security the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. At the same time, Social Security recipients have complained about long call wait times, as the agency's My Social Security Benefits portal has seen an increase in outages. Individuals who receive supplemental security income, including disabled seniors and low-income adults and children, also reported receiving a notice that said they were not receiving benefits. The agency said the notice was a mistake, and the White House has vowed that it would not cut Social Security benefits, saying any changes are intended to reduce waste and fraud. They're shooting first and aiming later, Biden alleged. They want to wreck it so they can rob it. Why do they want to rob it? In order to give tax cuts to billionaires and big corporations. Among the conference attendees was Michigan-based attorney Jason Turkish, who leads one of the country's largest disability law firms. He said Trump's presidency has caused anxiety for many of his 32,000 clients nationwide who are worried about diminished benefits and uncertainty over agency changes. We go from Republican to Democrat to Republican, and there's always been a belief that Social Security is just something we do not touch, he said. Still, he said there are signs that the Social Security Administration officials are open to change. He cited how the agency partly backtracked on plans to require beneficiaries to go to a field office to verify their identity. Turkish is also optimistic about agency modernization efforts. Biden is not expected to make frequent public appearances as he transitions into his post-presidential career. He still maintains an office in Washington, but has returned to Delaware as his regular home base. Trump has revoked his security clearances. This is an all-hands-on-deck moment, which is why President Biden's voice in this moment is so important, Democrat House Leader Hakeem Jeffries said in a call with reporters ahead of Biden's address. While Biden may be in a position to help his party with fundraising and messaging moving forward, he left the White House with weak approval ratings. Biden also faces blame from some progressives who argue he shouldn't have sought a second term. Biden ended his re-election bid after his disastrous debate performance against Trump and made way for then Vice President Kamala Harris, who lost to Trump in the fall. Just 39% of Americans had a favorable opinion of Biden in January, according to a Gallup poll taken shortly after Trump's inauguration. Views of the Democrat former president were essentially unchanged from a Gallup poll taken shortly after the November election. They broadly track with the steadily low favorability ratings that Biden experienced throughout the second half of his presidential term. Indeed, while some Democrat leaders welcomed Biden's return this week, others were not pleased to see him. The best role that Biden could play going forward would be to stay off the public stage, said progressive activist Norman Solomon. That might sound harsh, but frankly, his self-centered mentality has already done so much damage to the Democrat Party and the country that he certainly owes us some belated humility. Again, that's over at apnews.com. I guess Nancy Pelosi kind of told us, or she said the quiet part out loud, she's from Baltimore, Biden's family's from Baltimore. It's all criminal gangs over there, and their families, I don't know. It's a small place, right? But Pelosi was one of those who told us about the wrap-up smear and how they merchandise on it. So you say something, and then the media reports on it, and then other politicians report on the media reports as if it's facts, and before you know it, you're in this sort of circulation of expansion that has no truth. The White House fought back a bit on the claims that Social Security were going to be gutted, or somebody took a hatchet to it, right? Fact check. President Trump will always protect Social Security, Medicare. That is on the White House website, whitehouse.gov. The Trump administration will not cut Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid benefits. President Trump himself has said it over and over and over again, and there are links to those articles. Elon Musk didn't say that either. The press is lying again. Here is Musk's direct quote. The waste and fraud in entitlement spending, which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. So that's like the big one to eliminate. That's the sort of $500 billion, maybe $600 to $700 billion a year. And he's exactly right. Fact. The U.S. Government Accountability Office estimates taxpayers lose as much as $521 billion annually to fraud, and most of that is within entitlement programs such as Medicare and Medicaid. Fact. Over the past 2 decades, the federal government has made an estimated $2.7 trillion in, quote, improper payments, the majority of which come in the form of payments to deceased individuals or those who are no longer eligible for government programs. Fact. The Social Security Administration made an estimated $72 billion in improper payments between 2015 and 2022. Fact. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services estimated it made $140 billion plus in improper payments in 2024 alone. What kind of person doesn't support eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse in government spending that ultimately costs taxpayers more? And that's pretty concise rebuttal over at the White House website. And this was posted back March 11th, 2025, almost a month before the accusations that came out this month about DailyCaller.com has blue state schools facing Trump administration investigation helped hundreds of kids change their gender last year. This is by Caitlin Richardson. A handful of California school districts helped hundreds of students change their so-called gender identity on official records, documents obtained by the Daily Caller show. Across 6 districts serving nearly 158,000 total students that provided data from the 2023-2024 school year, more than 300 children were placed on gender support plans, or had their names or pronouns modified in school systems, according to records requests submitted by the Interfaith Statewide Coalition, a group of parents and faith leaders defending parental rights. Sarah Doe, an Interfaith Statewide Coalition board member and refugee from Vietnam, told the Daily Caller she is appalled at the deception coming from our public schools. They're exploiting the trust of immigrant families by teaching children gender ideologies that contradict our family and cultural values. Doe told the Daily Caller, interfaith leaders are uniting to expose these secret gender changes going on behind parents' backs through our schools. Some districts have been transparent to respond to our public record requests. Others refuse transparency to the very taxpayers funding public education. It's unclear whether parents were notified of the changes because most districts did not directly disclose this information, but several have policies against informing parents. The Trump administration launched an investigation into California's Department of Education in March over a law Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom signed in 2024 that prohibits schools from requiring teachers and staff to notify parents when their child is identifying as transgender. The Department of Education alleged the law, which took effect January 1st, violates the Family Educational Rights Privacy Act, or FERPA. In the Santa Ana Unified School District, public records show that there have been 260 instances of students in grades 4 through 12 changing their names due to their gender identity since 2017. Last year, the district provided name changes for 51 students. Naya Morales, who was a parent volunteer in Santa Ana schools for 9 years, pulled her kids out after finding out what they were doing behind parents' backs, including stocking the libraries with sexually explicit books and implementing a policy in 2023 that keeps students' gender identity hidden from parents. The district is facing major layoffs, passing a plan in January to eliminate nearly 300 employees, according to NBC Los Angeles. A big reason for that is decreased enrollment, Morales said. Andrea Tapia, whose daughter will be returning to high school in the Santa Ana district in the fall, told the Daily Caller, the numbers make her wonder whether parents were aware when their child's name was changed. I would want the opportunity to speak to my child before having a teacher or staff member at school change their identity, Tapia said. I would want to remind them that they are made in the image of God, they are made with a purpose, and they are perfect just the way they are. The Interfaith Statewide Coalition put up an ad in the district informing parents of the number. In another Southern California district, more than a third of students with documented requests to change their gender had special needs, data shared with Daily Caller shows. During the 2023-2024 school year, 78 students in the Capistrano Unified School District requested gender changes, according to a public records request. 30 of those students also had an Individualized Education Program, IEP, which accommodates students with special needs. Capistrano was the only district to supply the Interfaith Statewide Coalition with the number of students on IEPs who requested gender changes. Brenda Lebsack, Coalition founder and Santa Ana Unified School District board member, told Daily Caller. The number of students on IEPs is very significant, Lebsack told the Daily Caller, highlighting a 2020 study that revealed transgender identifying individuals were 3 to 6 times more likely to be autistic than those who do not identify as transgender. Lebsack, also a special education teacher, suggested helping kids change their gender without parental knowledge could be a violation of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, which promises parents access to their child's records upon request and requires parental consent for services. In the procedural safeguards given to parents at IEP meetings, they're told that their child will not have any services without written parent consent. This includes related services such as counseling, she told the Daily Caller. But that's no longer the case since schools now offer gender-affirming services such as counseling. A total of 194 students have requested gender changes in the Capistrano district since 2017. The youngest child who requested a gender change was in preschool and had an IEP, data shows. The Anaheim Union High School District implemented gender support plans for the first time during the 2023 and 24 school year when 53 plans were created for students, according to district data. In the Moreno Valley Unified School District, 19 students identify as non-binary and 356 students have a preferred pronoun listed in the district's database per records released in August of 2024. Interim Communications Director Alex Sponheim told the Daily Caller that the district continues to follow the recent law preventing disclosure of student information related to gender identity to parents. The district does not maintain records that track the creation and implementation of gender identity support plans, Sponheim said. In the Tucson Unified School District, 40 students requested to change their name in the 2023-24 school year, which the district notes is for a number of reasons, including those related to gender, nicknames, change of legal name, records show. The district did not respond to Daily Caller's request to clarify how many of these changes were directly related to gender identity. In the Riverside Unified School District, there are 29 students who identify as non-binary, according to records requests. The district's database does not indicate if a student is transgender or whether the student has a gender identity support plan, the response states. During the 2023-24 school year, 14 students in the Los Alamitos Unified School District requested a change of name, pronouns, or gender identity. The district said lists of gender support plans simply do not exist, and individual student plans are exempt from disclosure per records request. 14 elementary school students and 96 secondary school students received gender support plans during the 2022-23 school year in the Irvine Unified School District, per records data. In the Fullerton Joint Union High School District, 106 students requested to change their name in the 2023-24 school year, which the district notes could include changes for reasons other than gender identity. Gender support plans were created for 2 students that same year and for 1 student during the 2022-23 school year. Of the 3 support plans we have on record, all have included communication with parents. Assistant Superintendent Carl Zener wrote in an August 2024 response to the Interfaith Statewide Coalition. While some districts offered data, several that received requests from Interstate Faith Coalition declined to provide numbers or said they don't keep track of gender support plans. The Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District offers gender support plans for its students without requiring parental knowledge. Guidance tells students they have a right to be referred to by their authentic name and pronoun and use the bathroom that corresponds to their gender identity. The district did not provide the number of plans it created in response to a public records request and did not respond to Daily Caller for comment. Not every district has accepted state requirements to cut parents out of the loop. The Chino Valley Unified School District filed a federal lawsuit against the state in July of 2024, alleging California's new law prohibiting parental notification violates FERPA as well as the First and 14th Amendments. So those details are over at dailycaller.com. I think what it tells us is that it's everywhere, especially in Newsom's California. And it's insidious. It's climbing underneath where you can't see it. And it's going after the most vulnerable people, not just children, but those who have special needs, especially those who are autistic. Do we want to support people and make sure that they're happy and give them every opportunity in life? Of course we do. But it seems that there is an agenda to undermine the culture of our nation that built our great land. And you can see it growing like cancer in California. TheBlaze.com had an article titled Die Elon, Man Charged for Firebombing Tesla Dealership and GOP Headquarters in New Mexico. Pam Bondi vows consequences. This is by Paul Saka. The U.S. Department of Justice has brought significant criminal charges against a New Mexico man who is accused of carrying out arson attacks against the New Mexico Republican Party headquarters and a Tesla dealership in the state. Jameson Wagner, a 40-year-old resident of Albuquerque, New Mexico, was arrested and charged with 2 counts of malicious damage or destruction of property by fire or explosives, according to federal authorities. If convicted, Wagner faces between 5 and 20 years in prison for each count. Federal prosecutors claim the first arson attack took place at a Tesla dealership in Albuquerque on February 9th. Wagner is accused of arson in the Tesla dealership and also of vandalizing the building with inflammatory graffiti, including allegedly writing Die Elon, Tesla Nazi Inc., Die Tesla Nazi, and swastika symbols, according to a report from the Justice Department. There's been outrage, at times violent, by leftists incensed by Elon Musk's efforts with the Department of Government Efficiency to get rid of excessive or fraudulent federal government spending. On March 30th, the headquarters of the Republican Party of New Mexico was allegedly attacked. The office reportedly suffered from shattered glass and extensive fire damage to a door, and the outside walls were spray painted with graffiti that read, ICE equals KKK. Surveillance cameras at both locations captured a white 2015 Hyundai Accent near the crime scenes. Evidence collected from both crime scenes led to the home of Wagner. During a search of Wagner's home, investigators allegedly discovered a stencil with the term ICE equals KKK, an apparent reference to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Authorities also found 8 suspected incendiary devices. No one was injured in either incident, according to investigators. The Justice Department announced in a statement that FBI and ATF agents found blue styrofoam egg cartons consistent with the polystyrene material found in the improvised napalm used in the Tesla fire. Materials for manufacturing additional incendiary devices, ignitable liquids consistent with the gasoline used at both fire scenes, as well as black and red spray paint matching the graffiti used at both crime scenes at Wagner's residence. Authorities also allegedly found Wagner's 2015 white Hyundai Accent in his garage. Federal authorities have declared that Wagner will now face the full force of the law if he is found guilty. U.S. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche declared, hurling firebombs is not a political protest. It is a dangerous felony that we will prosecute to the maximum extent. The impressive work by law enforcement in New Mexico sends a clear message to perpetrators of all the shameful attacks on Tesla facilities and political establishments. We are coming for you. You can't hide, and you will do serious jail time to pay for your crimes. Deputy Director Robert Cicada of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives added, a key suspect is now in custody thanks to the exceptional work of ATF's special agents, certified fire investigators, and forensic specialists. This arrest marks a critical step forward toward justice in the firebombing that targeted a Tesla dealership and the New Mexico Republican Party headquarters. Our teams worked around the clock, collecting, analyzing, connecting forensic evidence across both scenes. With the support of local partners, the FBI, and the rapid work of ATF's forensic lab, we were able to link the crimes, identify those responsible, and take swift action to protect the public. This is what the ATF does. We follow the evidence, we find the truth, and we bring offenders to justice. FBI Director Kash Patel stated, this arrest is part of the FBI's aggressive efforts to investigate and hold accountable those who've targeted Tesla facilities in various states across the country. Thank you to our agents and support teams in Albuquerque who did an outstanding job executing the mission. Under Attorney General Bondi's leadership, we will continue to locate and arrest those responsible for these acts of domestic terrorism, and the FBI will work with partners at the Department of Justice to ensure such lawbreakers face justice. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi stated of the case on X social media platform, we will be prosecuting to the fullest extent of the law. We are seeking up to 40 years in prison. No negotiating. Bondi also hinted this week that federal prosecutors would not accept plea deals. Let this be the final lesson to those taking part in this ongoing wave of political violence, said Bondi. We will arrest you, we will prosecute you, and we will not negotiate. Crimes have consequences. FBI spokesperson Ben Williamson told the New York Post, following Attorney General Bondi's leadership, Director Patel immediately took steps to have the FBI quickly locate and arrest domestic terrorists attacking Tesla facilities. And we're glad to see the latest operation succeed, not just in this effort, but also bring to justice the same alleged attacker of the New Mexico Republican Party from February. Again, that's over at Blaze News, theblaze.com. FreeBeacon.com, the home of the Washington Free Beacon, had this article: Northwestern vandals spray paint Hamas triangles, Intifada now, on campus building housing Holocaust Center. University's president promises to suspend any students involved in the incident, which took place during Passover. This is by Jessica Kosescu. Anti-Semitic vandals used red paint to write death to Israel and draw Hamas triangles on a Northwestern University building that houses the school's Holocaust Center as Jewish students observe Passover. Unity of Fields, a self-described militant front against the U.S., NATO, Zionist axis of imperialism that has vowed to bring violence to America, shared photos of the vandalism on Monday evening on their X account. The accusation of anti-Semitism is nothing more than a veiled attempt to hide what they truly fear, the inevitable victory of the Palestinian liberation struggle, the group posted on X. The university wants us to succumb to our fears. $790 million lost should only push us to further escalate. History calls on us to respond with total upheaval, the group added. Glory to the martyrs. Escalate for Palestine. The anti-Semitic radicals spray-painted Death to Israel, Intifada now, River to the Sea, and upside-down triangles as a symbol of Hamas, used to denote Israeli targets, on Kresge Centennial Hall around 4 a.m. on Monday, the second morning of Passover. The building is home to Northwestern's Holocaust Education Foundation, which was founded by Auschwitz survivor Theodor Zev Weiss, and hosts a number of Holocaust studies courses. It's also connected to Crow Hall, home to the Weinberg School Crown Family Center for Jewish Studies. There's some images included. Only one other building, University Hall, was vandalized, similarly graffitied with upside-down triangles. The radicals also splashed red paint across the buildings, stamped handprints, and plastered posters of Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia University graduate student facing deportation over his pro-Hamas organizing on campus. Alison Purslovan, the Midwest director of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, a Jewish human rights organization that combats anti-Semitism, told the Washington Free Beacon that the vandals intentionally targeted the building hosting Northwestern's Holocaust Center. The Simon Wiesenthal Center is appalled by the graffiti and flyers that were found on Northwestern University during the Passover holiday. The anti-Semitic rhetoric was not only vicious, but it was violent in nature, as it called for the death of Jews, Intifada now, and the destruction of the state of Israel, death to Israel, she said. The perpetrators targeted the building, which houses the Holocaust Educational Foundation, which was founded by Auschwitz survivor Theodor Zev Weiss, and intentionally splattered red paint to resemble blood. As Jewish students at Northwestern University gathered to celebrate Passover, a holiday that commemorates freedom from oppression, they should not feel intimidated or afraid on their campus, Purslovan added. We thank Northwestern University President Michael Schill for quickly issuing a statement condemning the anti-Semitic incident. We must continue to work together against the hateful rhetoric that is targeting Jews on campus and in our communities. Again, this is over at freebeacon.com. And it's almost like this week's news articles were designed to illustrate a question in people's minds, like, who are the Nazis anymore? Because if Trump is aligned with Israel, that makes it difficult to pin that label on him. But because all things anti-Trump have to be on the other side of the house, we have this article from Axios.com. Obama praises Harvard for resisting Trump's demands. That's by April Rubin. Former President Obama, yes, the same one who's still around, praised Harvard University on Monday for refusing to cave to the Trump administration's demands in order to keep billions in federal funding. Big picture, Obama had previously urged schools to stand up for their values and to resist intimidation amid pressure from the Trump administration. But Monday's comments went a step further when he called the administration's efforts unlawful and ham-handed. Driving the news, Harvard has set an example for other higher ed institutions, Obama said late Monday on X. Obama did not name the Trump administration in his post, but said that the pressure is an attempt to stifle academic freedom while taking concrete steps to make sure all students at Harvard can benefit from an environment of intellectual inquiry, rigorous debate, and mutual respect. Let's hope other institutions follow suit, he wrote. Earlier this month, Obama also expressed his concern about efforts to stifle free speech on college campuses during a Q&A at Hamilton College in upstate New York. Idea of canceling a speaker who comes to your campus, trying to shout them down and not letting them speak, even if I find their ideas obnoxious. Well, not only is it not what universities should be about, that's not what America should be about, he said. I'm more deeply concerned with the federal government that threatens universities if they don't give up students who are exercising their right to free speech, he said. All that may be true to a certain extent. I mean, I think he's appealing to some sense of freedom and the classic word liberal, right? Let's be open and free and let's not stifle. The thing is what's being illustrated here is the absolute cesspool that's going on in higher education, and the federal government is funding millions of dollars into these educational institutions, which are private and are well-heeled and have plenty of cash already. So why does tax dollars flow to a place that engenders hate against the very foundation that is feeding it? It doesn't make sense to continue to send money to people who hate us, right? Context. Obama attended Harvard Law and in 1990 became the first black president of the Harvard Law Review. If you go digging up some of them pictures, you might find out some data that they say is not true. Catch up, like what his name is, where he's from, what his nationality is. Catch up quick. An education task force on Monday said it will freeze $2.2 billion in grants and $60 million in contracts for Harvard after the university's officials said they wouldn't comply with the Trump administration's demands. The Trump administration had requested multiple audits over hiring, admissions, and college practices. Anyway, again, that's over at Axios.com. I'll leave the link to this and all the articles that I cover on today's Atomic Biscuits out on my Gab account. You can find me at BACFA. Ars Technica reported White House calls NPR and PBS a grift, will ask Congress to rescind funding. That's by John Brodkin. The Trump White House is proposing to eliminate most federal funding for National Public Radio, NPR, and Public Broadcasting Service, PBS, and issued a statement yesterday alleging that NPR and PBS spread radical woke propaganda disguised as news. The NPR-PBS grift has ripped us off for too long, the White House statement said. White House Budget Director Russ Vought drafted a memo for a rescission plan that would eliminate funding already approved by Congress, according to multiple news reports. This includes $1.1 billion for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, or about 2 years' worth of funding for the nonprofit group that provides money to public broadcasting stations. The Vaught memo accused CPB of a lengthy history of anti-conservative bias, according to the New York Post. The memo also reportedly proposed an $8.3 billion cut for USAID. The $1.1 billion accounts for most of the federal money that goes to CPB. The Trump administration isn't planning to ask Congress to claw back about $100 million allocated for emergency communications, the New York Times wrote. They also said that CPB is forward funded 2 years to insulate it from political maneuvering, and a sizable chunk of the money for 2025 has already been paid out to public broadcasters in the United States. In March, Trump said in a Truth Social post that NPR and PBS are two horrible and completely biased platforms that should be defunded by Congress immediately. In a statement provided to Ours Today, PBS CEO Paula Kruger said that the effort underway to get Congress to rescind public media funding would disrupt the essential service PBS and local member stations provide to the American people. There's nothing more American than PBS, and our work is only possible because of the bipartisan support we have always received from Congress. Without PBS member stations, Americans will lose unique local programming and emergency services in times of crisis. We also contacted the CPB and NPR today, and will update this article if they provide any comments. It goes on to talk about how it is outrageous and cultural sabotage from Senator Markey. I think not having all that money funneling into foreign propaganda that they air on these channels, or local garbage that really ought to be somebody on YouTube, those are things that can go away, and that's fine. If you want to watch foreign programming, there are ways to get at it, either through the internet or through other services. PR does not need to provide that everywhere. There's some valuable stuff on PBS. I think that there is some things that you could class as educational that are good. There's some good kids programming on some of those stations, or there was. I don't know if it's infected, and I imagine that that's the real core of this issue, is that it isn't just about learning your ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. It's about all these other things to do with the birds and the bees. You'll need to go over to nypost.com to find this great article by Betsy McCaughey, one of my favorite authors over there, How China's Chokehold on U.S. Medicine puts American lives in danger. I think this is one of the things that the tariffs is doing for us, is exposing all the places that things are leaking into our economy that we're not really aware of. China's playing hardball, and it's not just about tariffs and the global economy. Our lives could be on the line. Soon after President Donald Trump announced his first round of tariffs on Chinese goods this month, China hit back, totally suspending its exports of rare earth minerals and magnets, a key strategic monopoly. Those materials are essential to manufacture automobiles and electric vehicles, as well as America's fighter jets, drones, robots, basically the next generation of warfighting weaponry. China's move puts a stranglehold on these industries and threatens our national defense. Its next logical step is to cut off our medical supplies. China has a death grip on America's generic drug market, as well as on basic medical equipment that every hospital and doctor's office relies on. And Beijing has already threatened to weaponize this control to throw our hospitals into chaos, put us on our deathbeds, and watch us suffer. 5 years ago, soon after the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, the state-run Xinhua media agency warned that China could retaliate against Trump's U.S. travel restrictions by banning the export of all medical products. The United States will fall into the hell of a new coronavirus pneumonia epidemic, the outlet proclaimed. When your enemy issues a threat like that, believe it. Unlike the ongoing tit-for-tat dance between the U.S. and its friendly trading partners over tariff levels, China's halt of minerals exports is an act of raw economic warfare. China is blocking the ability of the U.S. to get essential goods at any price. Today it's rare earth minerals. Tomorrow it could be medicines and medical supplies. China is the sole manufacturer of 100 of our most commonly used medications, including many that keep American patients alive, like antibiotics and blood thinners. It's also our largest supplier of nitrate gloves, masks, syringes, and other medical equipment essential to perform surgeries and other procedures. India, America's other chief supplier of generic drugs, now relies largely on China for those medications' basic ingredients, according to the Global Trade Research Initiative. Ireland's growing pharmaceutical industry focuses on the priciest name brand drugs, not the generics that form the backbone of American medical care. With almost no foreign sources for generic medications and supplies, the United States has no alternative. We must start producing these goods here at home. Top aides in Trump's first administration understood that necessity. If you're the Chinese and you really want to destroy us, just stop sending us antibiotics, National Economic Council Director Gary Cohn said back then. In 2020, Trump invoked the Defense Production Act to push U.S. manufacturers into producing up to a third of the nation's gloves and similar supplies domestically. But the Biden administration botched the execution. By 2022, the government had spent roughly $1 billion on half-finished factories to produce nitrate gloves without a single glove to show for it. When the funding expired in early 2022, Biden didn't bother to authorize a renewal. U.S. dependence on China for surgical gloves actually increased after 2020, even though their quality is so poor that double gloving is now routine to compensate for frequent tearing. Similarly, U.S. imports of finished Chinese pharmaceuticals and active drug ingredients soared after 2020, despite Biden's lip service to reducing our dependence. Trump's strategic active pharmaceutical ingredients reserve set up in 2020, in case China cut off its exports, was only 1% filled as of November 2024, the American Compass think tank found. That's shocking negligence. China's clampdown on rare earth minerals is a wake-up call. Congress needs to act, and fast, to invest public funds or offer tax incentives to build American medical manufacturing capacity. Last week, Senator Tom Cotton, Republican from Arkansas, introduced a bill that would do just this. The measure would also bar U.S. sales of drugs made in China or with Chinese ingredients after 2030. Trump should also slap hefty tariffs on China's medications. Generic drug manufacturers here are more likely to invest in expansion if they know they won't be blown away by cheap Chinese competitors. And we must shift the conversation in D.C. away from shaving drug costs towards ensuring drug access. Domestic drug manufacturing will necessarily cost more, but the key to improving Americans' health is the ability to get the drug you need to prevent a heart attack or dissolve a blood clot, whether China is on the warpath or not. China's President Xi Jinping claims there are no winners in a trade war or a tariff war. That's untrue. The United States appears poised to win reciprocal tariffs or no tariffs with its friendly trading partners. Trump should take those wins. Meanwhile, China has shown its true colors as an adversary bent on bringing its trading partners to their knees. We've been warned. Time to take action. And that is over at nypost.com. I wanted to point you towards this article over at noisyroom.net. Trump versus the big banks. This is by Cliff Kincaid. And the trade war is underway. President Trump is not only facing off against Red China, but the global big banks headquartered in New York, which underwrote the communist Chinese rise to power economically and militarily. As a result, even Maria Bartiromo of Fox News catered to Jamie Dimon of JP Chase, asking for comments on her show that forced Trump to pause some tariffs. Trump acknowledged he watched Dimon's comments and reacted accordingly. How did the CEO of JP Chase get such power? Bartiromo understands Dimon's role. Her broadcast series, Uncovering Wall Street's Role in China's Power Play, is designed to highlight the role of the big banks. Anthony Sutton's 1974 book Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution documents a link between U.S. banking interests and the Bolshevik cause, the subsequent rise of the Communist Chinese, and invasions of South Korea and South Vietnam, resulting in 100 million dead. In addition, tens of thousands of American personnel in the military died attempting to stop the advance of international communism. The 23 million people on the island of Free China on Taiwan are now in immediate danger. In China's case, it was Henry Kissinger who insisted that China had abandoned communism and was no longer a threat. On the business channels, we're being treated to an endless series of doomsday forecasts, such as Ray Dalio, the American billionaire and hedge fund manager who founded Bridgewater Associates, warning of a recession or worse if the tariffs against China remain. He's a figure in the National Committee on the United States-China Relations, which promotes understanding and cooperation between the United States and Greater China in the belief that sound and productive Sino-American relations serve vital American and world interests. To understand the current dilemma, consider V.I. Lenin's Imperialism, the Highest Stage of Capitalism, where he writes about how the export of capital by the banks and the corporate monopolies has replaced the old capitalism of free competition. The Soviet revolutionary expanded on the Communist Manifesto to predict the rise of the international banks as the highest stage of capitalism emerged. We must understand the Marxist game plan for the world. Today, says JP Morgan Chase website, we serve Chinese and international corporations, financial institutions, and government agencies through our network in Beijing, Shanghai, Tianjin, Guangzhou, Chengdu, Suzhou, and Shenzhen. They're proud of what they've done. We're in this position because of more than 30 years of what the United Nations called trade liberalization, defined in glowing terms as the reduction of trade barriers between nations. Some conservatives fell for the bait because they thought that free trade ran counter to the notion of big government. However, free trade, as envisioned by the UN, always involved giving international bureaucracies the power to manage trade relations between states, as big banks financed the rise of the rest of the world, including Red China. Hence, free trade was really managed trade under the supervision of the UN and came to define globalization financed by capitalists, leading to the rise of Red China. There's more here, of course, in Cliff's article. I encourage you to come to noisyroom.net and give it a good read. There's so much AI-generated bunk out there, it's difficult sometimes to look at a headline and go, well, is this something that is made up? Is this something that AI aggregated, or is this actually real? Because it's hard to know what's really happening. So take that under your hat when you see this article at gizmodo.com. Google's new AI is trying to talk to dolphins. Seriously. A new AI model produced by computer scientists in collaboration with dolphin researchers could open the door to two-way animal communication. Now, I don't know if you have an animal like I do, but they certainly do communicate what they need and want, and when they're not happy. In a collaboration that sounds straight out of sci-fi but is very much grounded in decades of ocean science, Google has teamed up with marine biologists and AI researchers to build a large language model designed not to chat with humans, but with dolphins. The model is Dolphin Gemma, a cutting-edge large language model trained to recognize, predict, and eventually generate dolphin vocalizations in an effort to not only crack the code on how the cetaceans communicate with each other, but also how we might be able to communicate with them ourselves. Developed in partnership with the Wild Dolphin Project, WDP, and researchers at Georgia Tech, the model represents the latest milestone in a quest that has been swimming along for more than 40 years. Since 1985, WDP has run the world's longest underwater study of dolphins. The project investigates a group of wild Atlantic spotted dolphins, the S. frontalis, in the Bahamas. Over the decades, the team has non-invasively collected underwater audio and video data that is associated with individual dolphins in the pod, detailing aspects of the animals' relationships and life histories. The project has yielded an extraordinary dataset, one packed with 41 years of sound behavior pairings, like courtship buzzes, aggressive squawks used to cetacean altercations, and signature whistles that act as dolphin name tags. This trove of labeled vocalizations gave Google researchers what they needed to train an AI model designed to do for dolphin sounds what ChatGPT does for words. Thus, Dolphin Gemma was born, a roughly 400 million parameter model built on the same research that powers Google's Gemini models. Dolphin Gemma is audio in, audio out, The model listens to dolphin vocalizations and predicts what sound comes next, essentially learning the structure of dolphin communication. Artificial intelligence models are changing the rate at which experts can decipher animal communication. Everything under the sun, from dog barks and bird whistles, is easily fed into large language models, which then can use pattern recognition and any relevant contexts to sift through the noise and posit what the animals are, quote, saying. Last year, researchers at the University of Michigan, Mexico's National Institute of Astrophysics, and the Optics and Electronics Institute used an AI speech model to identify dog emotions, gender, and identity from a dataset of barks. Cetaceans, a group that includes dolphins and whales, are an especially good target for AI-powered interpretation because of their lifestyles and the way they communicate. For one, whales and dolphins are sophisticated social creatures, which means that their communication is packed with nuance. But the clicks and shrill whistles the animals use to communicate are also easy to record and feed into a model that can unpack the grammar of the animal's sounds. Last May, for example, the nonprofit project SETI used software tools and machine learning on a library of 8,000 sperm whale codas and found patterns of rhythm and tempo that enabled the researchers to create the whale's phonetic alphabet. The dolphin Gemma model can generate new dolphin-like sounds in the correct acoustic patterns, potentially helping humans engage in real time, simplified back and forths with dolphins. This two-way communication relies on what Google blog referred to as cetacean hearing augmentation telemetry, or CHAT. An underwater computer that generates dolphin sounds the system associates with objects the dolphins like and regularly interact with, including seagrass and researchers' scarves. By demonstrating the system between humans, researchers hope the naturally curious dolphins will learn to mimic the whistles to request these items, the Google keyword blog stated. Eventually, as more of the dolphins' natural sounds are understood, they can also be added to the system. Chat is installed on modified smartphones, and the researchers' idea is to use it to create a basic shared vocabulary between dolphins and humans. If a dolphin mimics a synthetic whistle associated with a toy, a researcher can respond by handing it over, kind of like dolphin charades, with the novel tech acting as the intermediary. Future iterations of Chat will pack in more processing power and smarter algorithms, enabling faster responses and clearer interactions between the dolphins and their humanoid counterparts. Of course, that's easily said for controlled environments, but raises some serious ethical considerations about how to interface with dolphins in the wild should the communication methods become more sophisticated. Google plans to release Dolphin Gemma as an open model this summer, allowing researchers studying other species, including bottlenose or spinner dolphins, to apply it more broadly. Dolphin Gemma could be a significant step toward scientists better understanding one of the ocean's most familiar mammalian faces. We're not quite ready for a dolphin TED Talk, but the possibility of two-way communication is a tantalizing indicator of what AI models could make possible. And that story is over at Gizmodo.com. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of Atomic Biscuits. I want to thank you for tuning in yet again. I'm glad to be back on the airwaves after a brief break. Have a happy Easter and spend time with family and friends. And remember that it's all going to be okay. We just need to hold on, focus on the things that we can control and let go of those things we cannot. And be sure to embrace those who need a hug. From beautiful North Georgia, somewhere between peaches and beaches, this is BACFA.
Thanks for joining us for Atomic Biscuits. Tune in again next week for more news and music. Check out BACFA on Gab at BACFA, as well as Bitchute, Rumble, D-Live and Odysee. Check out LastScoutRadio.com for fun content. Listen to WBN 324 on radio stations around the world, on many streaming platforms, and World Broadcasting Network WBN 324.zil.